This is my Laurel Highlands Hiking Trail 70-mile ultra race recap. First off, I want to say I dedicate this race to my mom. She passed away a couple years ago. She would have turned 70 years old the day before the race, and with this being a 70-mile race, I figured I was going to dedicate this race to her after I finished, in her honor, because she was one of those people who always supported me running, always enjoyed coming to races, taking pictures, talking with people, watching people finish, and not just taking pictures of me, but other friends of mine and just random people. She always enjoyed being around that atmosphere, and stuff like that. And again, she always supported me and was always proud of me and wanted to hear the stories from races. And she actually saw me finish the race a couple times. This particular race, she was there the first year I finished it. She actually helped crew me that year as well. So all day long, I carried a picture of me and her from that first year finishing. You can see how happy and proud she is of me. That was back in like 2018. But I did carry that picture with me all day long. I just thought it'd be a good way to honor her for her 70th birthday, to dedicate the race to her. So I wanted to get that out of the way before I dive into the race recap itself. And I'm going to jump into some of the minute details before I actually get into the race minutia, I guess. So what I wore for the race was my Peregrine 13s, my Ultra Gam Gators, my Oil Creek socks, my McDavid compression calf sleeves, my Under Armour ISO Chill compression shorts, my Ultra Aspire Speed Goat 3.0 waist belt with two 20-ounce bottles. One had water, one had noon caffeinated in it. I forget what flavor. I had my MP3 player. I had my mission hat on. And it should be about it. I tucked in a couple wet wipes on the Ultra Aspire Speed Goat. I also had a reusable cup in there and had some other tablets of noon caffeinated, so I could use at the aid stations. And that would be my attire. I went shirtless. Wanted to stay a little bit cooler in the morning with the lower temps. So the night before, I didn't sleep well. I went to the bid pickup early in Ligonier. Stayed there till like 6:30. Didn't get home to 7. Didn't even start packing for the race until after 7 p.m. that night before. By the time I got finished, I still had to run up to Johnstown and drop some aid station stuff from my buddy John, who was going to help crew me in the morning. I still had to eat, shower before bed. So I was really way behind on getting things ready for the race. I didn't even really start to lay down till like 10:30. I had to get up at 3:30. I really only got like 3.5 hours of sleep because I tossed and turned a little bit and I didn't fall asleep right away. So I was definitely behind on sleep the night before. Not nervous sleep. It was just a little bit too hot because I ate some deer burgers like right around that like 9:30 range, and that protein was just like burning throughout my stomach, giving me energy, and I just couldn't fall asleep right away. So there was that. Morning of, I actually had my dad drive me down, which was pre-planned, to Ohio Powell at the start line, so I didn't have to catch the bus. If I had to catch the bus, I would have had to get up like an hour earlier. I meant I would have had to got like 2.5 hours of sleep, actually. Anyway, he drove me down. He did it before, like last year. On the way down, I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, a granola bar, and some crackers. Had a Gatorade. I forget what flavor. I think it was blue. And a little bit of Celsius, caffeinated, just to get myself going in the morning, a little bit of wakeness, because I was tired. I was feeling groggy on the way down. So there's that. So anyway, I was tired when I got, even before the race started, even in Ohio Powell, I was a little bit groggy and tired. But I figured the way I've been racing the last couple weeks, I haven't really woke up till, I always say 10:30, but sometimes it wasn't until 11 a.m. That's when my body and the circadian rhythm seems to be functioning fully. So I was figuring once I get to there, I'd be fine once I wake up. And again, if you heard my race strategy plan, I wasn't really planning to do anything or make any moves to the second half of the race. So like 35 miles in, I was just gonna let things play out in the first half and then see where I stood, and then let the first half dictate what I did the second half. Probably a little bit of a mistake. Who knows? So when we got to Ohio Powell, I ran over my gear with my dad, so he knew what to do. He was going to meet me first time at Route 31. My buddy John was going to meet me at the first 3 aid stations. There's 8 on the course total. My dad was there watching me start the race in Ohio Powell before he took off. He went home because he had like a 5-6 hour window before Route 31, so he went and got some more sleep. And he had to pick up some stuff for me as well. So the plan was going in, if you didn't hear already from my strategy video, I wanted to do a 12:30 time. If everything went well, that's what I was shooting for. I'd have to have like my A game. But if I shot for that 12:30, that would leave me, 11 hours to finish the race if things went sour, or about 2 hours before dark, which was really my main goal, was to finish before dark. So I had 2 set up, a 12:30 and a 14:15 pace to maintain. The 12:30 was like a 10:58, and the 14:15 was a 12:30 pace. So very doable for me. If I'm feeling good and everything goes right, that should be no problem at all for me. Should be able to actually knock down that time a little bit lower if I'm actually racing hard and pushing, in general terms. The race obviously didn't go as well as I hoped. I don't know if I said this yet, but I finished in 16 hours, 50 minutes, and 21 seconds, which is about a minute and a half PR from all the previous times I've done the race. I've done the race 5 times, finished all 5 times, so I'm 5 for 5 finisher. That was actually a really big goal that I had for a couple years now. I figured, how many people actually can say that they've done this race 5 times and finished 5 times, or even attempted it 5 times? So it was sort of a goal to have going in, and then obviously finishing before dark, and then like the pace goals, and then if everything went well and everything fell on my lap, then a podium, or winning the race or setting a record, that sort of thing. But I wasn't really expecting a course record, top first overall finish, or a top 3. I wasn't expecting that, just because previous years I've pretty much shit the bed during the race. I'd never been able to complete or put down a race on this course that I wanted to. Something's always happened. I think it's just because of my schedule leading up. I really don't have enough rest, and I beat my body up so much leading up to this race every year. It's just sort of where it falls apart, and this year was no exception to that. So shit happens, but at least I finished, I think I was like 33rd out of 182 people that started the race. So that's pretty good. Obviously a couple people dropped, and I was ahead. It's still ahead by about 100 people. So when I'm looking at it that way, I'm pretty content with how I did overall. A lot of people, I would say most people, if you would tell them they could do a 16:50 for this race for 70 miles, they would take it in a heartbeat. And obviously I will, because I finished the race. I felt good afterwards. I just, again, didn't put together a race that I wanted to in a time frame that I wanted to. and I just hit I guess I hit a wall early, but I'll get to that here in a couple minutes. So my strategy from Ohio Powell was to start out a little bit slow, let other people dictate the pace, and then again, the second half of the race, let things play out. This year, nobody out the gate blazed the trail at all. Everybody just seemed to be running within themselves, even though the first 2 miles were like an 8.5 or 9.5 pace. I forget which it was, but they were definitely, the first 2 miles were definitely under 10 minutes. I could see the lead. There was about a group of 10 of us, like the first mile, then we started weeding each other out that second mile, but again, it was under 10 minutes that first 2 miles. Nothing too spectacular to speak of. I did talk to, well, we were chit-chatting a little bit, like different people were chit-chatting in front of me and behind me, and I was trying to talk with people and see who was who during the race, because I did some scouting, so I was trying to figure out who was who, just in case I was around them later in the race. That way I'd be familiar with their actual ability and what they could do, strategy-wise. Plus, I just wanted to get some note of them, because a couple of them are out of town. So after that, like first 2 miles, it gets a little bit harder because we're starting to climb and actually get on the trail a little bit more. Because the first mile, 1.7, I would say, out of Ohio Powell is just around town before we actually hit the trail. And the first like half mile or so of the trail really isn't hard. There's just a few steps, and then it like flattens back out. But we are running in the dark a little bit for those first couple miles. I wouldn't say it's pitch black, but it's dark enough where you should still be wearing a headlamp so you don't trip, especially early in the morning in a 70-mile race. It starts at 5:30. That's one of the things you shouldn't want to do, is trip that early on and get hurt, stub a toe, fall, scrape a knee or anything like that, or just end up getting injured in DNF and that early in the race. So everybody was wearing a headlamp for the first couple miles before we turned them off. Probably, I would say the first 3.5 before everybody seemed to turn them off. Well, I don't know. Could be wrong. I did try to, like, my goal was to be 5 to 10 in that place range the first couple miles. That way I could start a little bit slower. And even in the first half of the race, that was sort of my goal, to stay in that range between the 5 and 10, maybe even 15 at the most, and then really start to do anything. So I was in that top 10 the first few miles. I would say the first 9 miles, I would say 9 or 10 easily I was in that top 10 range. I was at 5th at one point. But so we get up to the view. People were like, "Oh, that's a nice view." I was like, "Oh, get used to it. That's really the only one that you're going to see all day, except for the one in Seward." But if you're running past it, you really don't notice it. Because I know the course, since I live 5 minutes away from the end of the course, which is mile 70. So I'm very familiar with the course. I train on it all the time. I know what's coming. I know what the elevation is going to feel like. And again, being a 5-time finisher after this race, I'm familiar with how you should race it, even though I don't race it ever smartly. So we get to the top. We start our first downhill, but it's like a switchback real quick. The guy who was in lead started going straight instead of taking the switchback. I yell at him. I'm like, right. Everybody's looking at me like, what's this douchebag doing? I'm like, right. And then they realize I'm telling them there's the switchback. We have to make a sharp, it's like a 180 type switchback going down. But that was one of 2 times all day long that I had to correct somebody on the course. Well, you know what I mean? I'm not around somebody all day long either. But that was one of 2 times that I actually had to correct somebody and show them the right way. Or maybe it was 3. Might be 3. Anyway, so that was early on, and I thought that was going to be like how the day played out. Just a simple sign. People being stupid. But then again, it wasn't fully lit up yet, so you really didn't see the yellow on the trees. But whatever. But there was a tree down where this guy was trying to jump over, so I don't know what he was thinking. So we ran along the first couple miles. Again, I passed a couple people. We went back and forth a little bit. By the time we hit the infamous Gate 8 hill, I was in 5th place. There was 2 relays in front of me, and I know the one Kennedy. I don't know who the other guy was. Then there was like the 2 brothers right behind me. Well, not right behind me, but they were next up the hill. I could see 2 people in front of me on that Gate 8 hill. I couldn't see anybody behind me. And I actually power walked that hill way slower than I was planning to. But again, seeing people in front of the 2 guys in front of me and nobody behind me, I wasn't too concerned with the pace. By the time I got up to the top of Gate 8, and even I would say around mile 9 when it actually levels out a little bit, or at like the highest point of elevation, I would say. I was like 5 minutes behind my pace then, but again, I wasn't worried because how slow I ran or power walked up the Gate 8 hill, which is basically a 1,000-foot climb within a mile, but it's all uphill. It is a little bit hard if you're trying to run it hard like I did last year. As I said, nobody went and blazed the trail this year like me and this guy did last year. We were on a record pace last year. Nobody was doing that this year. Everybody was running way more comfortably than I was expecting to, and it was actually a little painful to be running that slow, like 10, 12-minute miles that early in the race. I think that sort of put me in the too much of a calm comfort mood as well, and sort of took me out of the race mode that I was in. The little race mode that I was in. I really didn't have a fully functioning race mode at all that day. So yeah, we were running a little bit too slow actually than I wanted to, but I thought it was good because it kept me in check. And I figured, hey, if I'm not spending the energy now, I'll have it later in the race, which would be a good thing. Just, again, see how things play out. But I will say, once we started climbing, even like that mile 2 range to get to the view, I could feel the humidity in the air. At least I did. Maybe it's because we were climbing, but I still felt it on the declines and some of the flats. I just felt like it was going to be a really hot, muggy day, and I was not looking forward to it. But again, that Ohio Powell section just seemed to be so humid and muggy. I was expecting to be a really shitty day temperature-wise, even though we started around 50, 55 degrees temps in Ohio Powell. And it was only supposed to be 75-ish, maybe 78 for the day, which is still kind of low. I've raced this where it's been like 85, 90 range, hot and humid and sunny, and it sucks, especially when you get in the high grass sections. But realistically, the temps weren't bad. And once we got to that mile 9, or I got to that mile 9, I did feel a little bit cooler. Maybe because we are up higher in elevation. Maybe not. And maybe because we quit climbing as much steepness then. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it. I was thinking about it a few different times, and maybe it's a combination. But there was seem to be a little bit of a breeze all day long as well. It wasn't like a still, hot, humid air. There was actually a breeze every once in a while that you could feel, which was nice. So I think out of the 5 years that I ran the race, the temperatures were the best, the humidity was the best, and with that breeze and stuff like that, the course didn't suck the life out of you like it can and has in past years for me. I wouldn't say it's because I'm in shape or know the course. I just think the temps were just almost perfect for the course. Obviously, I would have liked to have had them maybe 65 all day long. But I will take that like early on temps and then rising to 75 all day long with a breeze. So nothing really too exciting after that. After 11 mile 9 to Maple Summit Road, which is the first aid station, at like 11.6 miles in. I got a quick ginger ale from my buddy John, down some Powerade real quick. He handed me my food that I gave him, which was some watermelon, grapes, piece of bacon, and peanut butter pretzels. That's what I was getting at every aid station, so I don't have to tell you that at every aid station, but that's what I was picking up from my crew at all of them. Then I went on my way. Somewhere between 11 and 19, which is Route 653. On an uphill, I did have to shit. I was feeling it for a couple miles. I do remember that. I thought it was like the caffeine and I was getting a little bit gassy, but yeah, it turned out to be not. And when I was going up this one hill, I was like, yeah, this is just not gas. And if you don't do it now, then it's just going to slow you down even more. Because when you have to shit during a trail race, it's better to get it out of the way than trying to hold it into an aid station, because you are going to run a little bit slower. And it's going to be on your mind more. So it's going to take your concentration away from the trail running itself. And yeah, you don't want to like try to let out some gas and then it actually just come out. So as I was going up a hill, the trail would go to the right. I snuck back into the left a little bit off trail, off this. It was like a little access road. And it was, man, it was horrible. It was definitely like a pudding coming out of my ass, and glad I went. Had to be from those deer burgers the night before. All that protein just exiting out of me. I felt really great afterwards, but I did lose between 7 and 10 minutes there. I think it was closer to the 7-minute range. So I was down like 13 minutes at that point on my 12:30 pace, which I was like, that's not a big deal. I was like, got plenty of time left in the day to make that back up. All you have to do is push a little bit harder later in the race. Especially since my pace pro was positive splits, meaning I'm going to be running slower later in the day, and I had to plan for that. And then the heels were going to be slower, so easily could have made it up if I was feeling good. Nothing too exciting there, but I did message my buddy John and ask if he had any wet wipes or can get some wet wipes by the time I got to 19 aid station, and nobody had any. Not that I needed any more, but just in case something else happened, I needed them, because I used the ones I had. I was a little bit tired, starting to feel a little bit more tired when I hit 19, but nothing out of the ordinary. Oh, I guess I forgot to mention, at 11, the first aid station, I did fill both bottles up, which is kind of unusual for that early in the race. I usually still have half or all the liquids in there, but I actually drank both of them. So I was drinking a lot more liquids throughout the day than I normally would. And I was kind of surprised about that. But also, it meant I was staying on top of my hydration and not running dehydrated all day. Though I was way behind on nutrition all day long. Probably had a little bit too much caffeine as well. So I did fill up my bottles at that first aid station, which is mile 11.6 basically. Same thing at 19.3. I filled them both up. I emptied them out. And as I was saying, I was getting a little bit tired around, before that 19, probably after I pooped. But it was just something I felt like I was going to deal with all day long. But after 19 to 7 Springs, it just sort of hit me all at once. And my mind was just getting so foggy and tired, and my eyes were getting a little droopy or whatever. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, there's no way if I'm feeling this tired right now that I'm going to be able to finish this race. I was like, I'm starting to go downhill. Even though it's not that 10, 11 o'clock in the morning range yet, I just knew there's no way I'm going to be able to finish a 70-mile race when it's not even like 25 miles in yet, and I'm feeling this tired. My legs are good. My body felt all right. Like I wasn't sore or my legs weren't tired or anything like that. It was just like mentally tired from not getting enough sleep the night before. Um, so I actually got it in my mind that I was actually going to drop at Seven Springs. Um, I just was, I had issues between 19 and 26 last year where I was so behind on nutrition. I had that like hyponatremia or something like that. I was shaking and got chills there because I was just so far behind. And then that's when I fell last year in between that section. And that trauma just shook my body so much that I should have been medically dropped last year or medically pulled last year from the race. And this year it was just more of a mental fogginess just from lack of sleep. So nothing major, but again, I was just tired at that point and I knew I couldn't go on. So I tried to convince John to let me drop Seven Springs, which is mile 26. Now, when I say these mile markers, they're a little bit estimates because, some are shorter, some are longer. And even though it might be like mile 26 aid station, it might be a 10th after. The marker might be a 10th after. There's markers along the trail for every mile that you pass. They look like the awards. I'll show you the award real quick. They look like this, but they're cemented. And they have each mile on it. So like our awards, as you see, mile 7, like they have a 70 on there representing the 70-mile race. Anyway, getting back to that, he's like, "You're not dropping here." I'm like, "Well, if I don't drop here, I'm going to drop at Route 31 when I get to my dad." I was like, "I'm just tired." I was like, "I really don't care about this race." And when I also said, and not just mental fogginess, it was boredom. I will say I felt bored, which is really weird to say. And I don't know if any other trail runners ever said they were bored during a trail race, but I honestly felt bored. Last week at World's End, I just didn't want to race anymore, run anymore. This week, I just felt flat out bored. I think it's because I know the trail and I train on it all the time that I was just like, I'm not really excited to race. And as I was running, I'm just like, this just sucks. I was just so bored with running this trail. I was like, I don't feel like doing it. So part of it probably was because I was tired. And that boredom just sort of kicked in. And it was kind of a weird way to describe it, but it is the best way to describe it as well, was boredom. And my buddy Greg Hood was at that aid station as well, volunteering. And he's like, "Oh, what's up?" And I told him that I felt bored and I was just tired. And he's like, "Well, you did beat yourself up pretty good last weekend racing." And he's like, "You're probably bored because you run the trail all the time." And that's like, it just made sense when he said it, that's why I was bored, because I'm on it so much. I really just didn't care to run it again in a race setting. But whatever. I dicked around there for probably 15 minutes and I just decided, hey, if you don't let me drop here, I'm just going to do it when I get to my dad. So either way, I'm dropping. So I just ran on. I did eat a couple pieces of the watermelon and grapes and stuff like that. But I knew I was behind on nutrition. I didn't really care because if I did get hungry, it'd go away in a couple minutes. I'd just drink some of my noon or water and the hunger just seemed to go away. My body was probably fasted or something like that. It probably ate itself pretty good. I know at one point I think at 19 aid station, I did have a protein drink that I took. It's 30 grams of protein, 160 calories, some kind of just cheap equate drink that you can get at the pharmacies at Walmart. It's already mixed, but whatever. So I just had it in my mind, making another 6 miles at Route 31, which is like 32.3 miles in, that I was going to drop there once I got to my dad. Because again, I didn't care. I told my dad after I left Seven Springs, I was like, "Hey, don't expect me for another hour," because I was a little bit behind on my pace. I was like, "I'm probably going to drop because I just don't feel like running." He's like, "Well, if you're not in it, then I understand." So I had it in my mind. I was dead set to quit at Route 31 aid station. which is aid station 4. So when I got there, I'm like, yeah, all right, I'm done. My dad and John are trying to convince me not to. My dad's like, just make it to the next one, which is the correct thing to say. Just go from aid station to aid station and just, try to do what you can do. Because realistically, I had a ton of time. I still had 14-ish hours to make it 38 miles, 36 miles, which is nothing. I'm not saying it's nothing as in it's easy, but let's get serious here. That means I would have to do like a 25 minute pace the rest of the way. And I could jog or walk that if need be. In the grand scheme of things. And I know I'm capable of dropping a 50K in 5-6 hours. So I had it in me. Maybe it was just a mental thing. Maybe not. But I was like, all right, whatever. I was like, I'm tired. I at least need a nap, and we'll go from there. Which, in honesty, like I'm not against taking naps. Like a lot of ultra runners do it all the time. Some take like 5-10 minute naps on 100, 200 mile races, and they keep going. Me, I don't care if I take an hour, half an hour, whatever. But I just was like, all right, just give me a half an hour nap, and then we'll go from there to see how I feel. If I'm still tired, I'm going to drop. But I had it in my mind. I was still dropping after the nap, no matter what. It was just in my mind. There was going to be no convincing me that I was going to keep going. I just, I actually was looking forward to watching people at the finish line and seeing other people race that day more than actually racing myself. So I don't know what it was. So I'm laying there. A couple people were like interrupting me. You okay? You need anything? I'm like, I just need sleep. I just need to take a nap. Whatever. I might have got 10, maybe 15 minutes at the most just laying down. I laid down on a pair of rain pants that I randomly packed in case it rained or I got temperatures dropped so I could use them later in the race. Just so I wasn't laying on this like dirty gravel where the aid station was laid out at. So as I'm laying there and a couple people asked me if I'm all right, whatever. I had one of my haters come up and make a snarky comment. This cunt, which is the best way to describe her. If you know who she is, one, her voice is very distinctive and you could tell when she's trying to like agitate somebody, and she's just a cunt in general. If you know her long enough, everybody agrees that she's just a shady, snarky, cunty bitch. She just fools a lot of people until you actually get to know her. She comes up, stands beside me, and in a snarky manner, not in a worrisome manner. It was a snarky manner. She's like, "Oh, ain't that a shame?" Like she was happy to see me laying there, having a hard race. And right there, without a doubt, is the reason I finished the race. That comment alone made me determined to finish the race. So thank you, you snarky, cunty bitch, for giving me the motivation to finish the race, because I was all set on dropping. You would have got your way. You and your little cunty clique would have been happy. You guys could have made fun of me that I DNF'd at a race for a change. But no, you had to give me the motivation to finish the race. So joke's on you, you cunty bitch. So anyway, I didn't move a muscle. I pretended like I didn't hear it because I didn't want her to know that I acknowledged hearing her. So I just laid there. I didn't move a muscle or flinch when she said it. And I know it was her because her voice is distinctive, and I could even confirm why later. But then my buddy Ben, who was the race director of World's End last week, came up and asked me if I'm all right. This was, maybe 30 seconds to a minute later. I'm like, yeah, I got up. I was like, I'm ready to go now. I just need a quick little nap. Another reason why I'm taking a nap, laying down like that on my stomach, because I was laying on my stomach. I guess I should have mentioned that. I was laying on my stomach. So my body reabsorbs some of like the acid buildup in my legs. It's a little trick that I do. It helps a lot. I did it twice during this race. So that's why I didn't like flinch or move, because I knew that the way I was laying, it was very easily to not acknowledge the cunty bitch. But when Ben was talking to me, I got up, I opened my eyes, and I'll tell you what, I was wide awake. I'm not saying I had a bunch of energy or I was ready to throw down 7-minute miles. I didn't have that like supercharged mode, but I just had that determination come over me, and I was wide awake now that I was just going to finish the race. Like, I wasn't going to go and try to beat my pace time. I was just going to finish the race, finish healthy, and make sure I was running smart, stay hydrated, and not hurt myself or fall during the race. So that was my plan. So I got up, went over to my dad, got refueled a little bit. I think I don't know if I drank a protein. Yeah, I think I drank another protein drink there to get some calories in me. I changed socks there as well. And I got ready to go. I told my dad, I got him to come down towards the parking lot a little bit. I told him what was going on, what was said. And I was like, listen, I was like, I was going to drop, and I wanted to do a way better time than what I'm going to be able to do the rest of the day. But I'm going to finish the race, and it's going to be a little bit longer day. And he's like, you just got to do what you got to do. Because I reminded him that it was my mother's 70th birthday. And he's like, well, get it done. So there was confirmation right there between me and my dad as well that we were going to do whatever needed to be done to finish the race. He was going to be there for me or get me whatever I needed throughout the day. So that was basically that. I did take some baking powder there, stirred it up a little bit because it, helps with your acid as well. And I figured since it's halfway into the race, it's a good time to take that now. Try to keep that acid buildup from your body down so you can run longer, better, without any soreness. And I think it does help. I've done it for a couple weeks now, and it seems to be helping. I'd have to look into more scientific stuff into it, but I don't know. We're just going to say it works. I haven't had any adverse effects from it yet during a race. So, I don't know. Who knows? I did eat 3 little pierogies at that aid station before I left. They were the minis. They weren't the full-size ones, so that's why I had 3, just to get some calories in me. Then I was just smiling to myself. I was like, yep. I was like, you cunty bitch. I was like, you just had to say something. You couldn't just, walk by. I was like, gonna get it done. So I just went on my way. Nothing too exciting between Route 31 and Lynn Run, which is like 39. You do cross over the turnpike through a bridge over across the top. It felt really nice. Just because the open air, because it's got like a mesh side, so you don't throw anything off the bridge in the traffic, but it was just nice and breezy. It was a nice little breeze there. At that point, I do remember that. That was like very distinctive. I don't want to give details of the trail because sometimes I get confused, but I have in my past reviews, so I don't want to get it really too much. The Mount Laurel was starting to bloom pretty good. I would say it's almost at its peak, if not this week coming up. Early in the race, there's just a few bushes here or there. And then you get to the tunnels that last couple miles of the race. So Lynn Run, mile marker like 39.1-ish. I had my dad bring a gallon of water down so I could completely wash my body off. I used this cooling towel that I had, just making sure I get all the dirt, the grime off. I put my coolness bandana, like neck bandana thing on my hat. It's like got a little strap around, goes around like the brim part of your hat. It's just like a piece of cloth, maybe like an 8-inch by 8-inch piece of cloth that hangs down over your back, so it keeps the sun off your neck and a couple inches of my shoulders. I did wet that, and that felt amazing when I started going again, because the water does get a little bit warmer, but with that little bit of an air gap and it bouncing around, it just kept making a nice little cool breeze in the back of my neck, kept my body cool. I did grab a bag of ice as well off my dad at that aid station, and I would put it on my wrist, like in the joint of my elbow, under my armpits, put it around my heart a little bit, the back of my neck, the lower of my back, rubbed it on my calves a little bit. I just kept mixing it up here and there, just to, cool down some parts of my body. I did it once on my forehead, but I know not to do that because it'll give you a headache, especially during a race. You really shouldn't put ice on your forehead unless you have a fever. So I did avoid that. But that did slow me down for a couple miles till it finally, the ice melted enough where it just became water, and I just dumped it on my head. All race long, I did try to keep my body moist. I was actually dipping my hat in the water pretty early in the race. I would say probably 2 miles in, after we started those downhill switchbacks. From there on out, when there was a good little creek or spring, I would dip myself just to keep my body cooler early in the race. Because I know later in the race it's drier. My heart rate was pretty good all day after mile 8 or 9 when we were climbing, because it was in the 160s. But other than that, it was pretty decent the rest of the day, like below I don't know if it was below 150, but it was definitely below like 160 the rest of the day. So when we're going through like Lynn Run to Route 30, we're passing like Beams Rocks and stuff. I was telling the one guy I ran by, hey, this is where they do some rock climbing or rappelling, and that's where Beams Rocks is, right above us right now. It's got a really nice view if you ever get a chance to come back up and stuff like that. And I know the one guy was bitching because this is like a bouldery section, not like hard technical stuff, but annoying bigger rocks. You run on other rocks during the race, but these are kind of like more annoying because they're not as flat. They're kind of like awkward shape, like not sticking up pointy, but they're rounded. But just the way they are, they're more annoying to run over. So there is that. And I will say the course was probably the wettest I've ever seen it, at least during the race. So my feet were wet basically all day long until Route 30. There was no point in trying to avoid some of it because it would have just slowed you down way more. It took more energy out of you trying to go around stuff. So it was just basically easier to go straight through it, like World's End last week when David said just go through it. It'll save you a bunch of time. That's what I was doing during the race. And with it being the wettest, again, the creeks and the streams or springs, whatever, were higher than normal, which was nice. Again, it allowed me to keep myself cooler. But again, my feet were getting wet. And then my dumbass, a few times when I was splashing water on myself, because I would just dip my mission hat it's like a bucket a little, if I do it quick enough and pour it down my back of my head, damn water would go right down into my shoe. So my feet were way wetter than they needed to be. So by Route 30, my feet were getting a little bit sore. Even though I did switch socks at Route 31, but Route 30, they were getting a little bit sore from being wet all day long and wearing the Peregrine shoes because they're more of a speed shoe. So it does beat your feet up a little bit more because they're not a comfort shoe per se for trails. So I got to get a really good racing comfort trail shoe from Saucony. I just haven't yet. But I did take my Excursion TR 15s. And I had my dad grab them out of the car along with that first pair of socks that I switched out of. He had them on the dash so they would dry a little bit, and it worked. because as you're running, socks aren't going to like keep the moisture in. They're eventually just going to squeeze themselves out through the bottom of your shoe if you have good drainage. And then just putting them on the dash for a couple hours and let the sun hit them did dry them out. So at Route 30, when I got to Route 30, I did switch out shoes to my Excursion TR15s. And the reason for that is they are a little bit more comfortable. They're not like a speed shoe. They wouldn't be my first choice for racing trails. They are like 3 ounces heavier for each shoe. But the outsole is a little bit wider, which I guess helps you make it more stable / comfier, at least compared to the Peregrines, which have like a little bit more narrow outsole. So like picture like a sprinter. Like sprinters got those like tight, small outsoles, and then I'm trying to think how to compare it. Say like a shot putter or something like that. There's a little bit of a difference, but I would say there's like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch difference in the outsole, and it's just enough where you got a little bit more stability in it, and just the way the tread on those is a little bit more non-luggy. I don't know how to explain it, but the Peregrines are a little bit more luggy. So the way the Excursions are, there's more rubber, so you're not landing on more of spikes. There's more contact. Yeah, that's the best way to put it. There's more contact points on the Excursion than the Peregrine, so you're not beating your feet up as much. And I definitely felt the difference immediately. My feet don't swell. I know people are like, oh, maybe your feet swell. No, my feet don't swell. These are the same size shoes. And they fit the same way. So don't try to bullshit me. And give me that stupid feet swelling shit. My feet didn't do it. Even after 70 miles, they were the same size. And no, they did get longer as well. But anyway, I switched shoes. I grabbed my vest. Got my poles as well, because from Route 30, which is mile 46, to Route 271 is like 11 miles. It's like 10.6, but it's the longest in between aid stations for the day. And I figured I needed to gear up a little bit, just in case something happens where I actually have like gear that I would need. If my legs got tired, I'd have poles. It also had my lights, my waist lamp and my headlamp in the vest. So that was another reason I wanted that. In case I slowed down or did something, I'd already have my night gear and not have to trek to 271 in the dark. I also I had 2 20-ounce soft flasks in the front. My Hydro Pack ones. And then I took 2 20-ounce bottles from the Speed Goat, and I put one on my left-hand side back pocket, and I put the other one right behind, because that one I put up top kept falling out, because I needed to take more liquids with me in between aid stations. As I said earlier, I was drinking way more than I normally would, so this being the longer section of the trail in between aid stations, I know I needed to take more, especially in case something happened. So I had 80 ounces on me, which is very rare. And also at that aid station, I drank a half a can of Fit Aid caffeinated. I drank another protein drink. I finished a Powerade that I had there. Really didn't eat anything, honestly. I did grab a couple pieces of watermelon from the aid station, because my watermelon that I got it from like the deli section, and not like a cut up one. It just sucked. It just was so horrible. It was actually a pain in the ass to eat. So I grabbed 2 pieces of watermelon, a couple orange slices, and a honey stinger wafer or 2. I think I grabbed 2. And I tried to do a ginger chew that they had, and I just couldn't do it. I spit it out. Then I went on my way, across the road, because it's a road crossing right there. We have to go across. There's actually like 4 on the day that you have to be careful of, actual road crossings. Thankfully, the turnpike is not one of them. We got a bridge for that. So I go on. Nothing too exciting. I did pass a couple people. By that time in the race, there was a few of us going back and forth, depending on the terrain and how we felt. You know, if we were eating or drinking, we'd pass each other back up. I did poop somewhere else. I think it was in that section as well, between 30 and 271. That was a nice solid one. I was happy with that. I also peed like 30, 40 times all day long. So I was definitely hydrated from peeing so much. Earlier in the race, it was really dark. And then later in the race, it got lighter. At Route 30, I did switch to Scratch for my electrolytes. I didn't do any more of the noon caffeinated because I figured the caffeinated was just, there's just too much caffeine. I probably had 1,000 grams of caffeine in me so far in the day. It wasn't helping keeping me awake, I'll tell you that though. So I definitely needed to wean myself off of that. So I went to the Scratch that they had at the race. Plus I needed something else different, like a different taste in my mouth. I was tired of the caffeinated stuff. I just kept going, ticking off the miles, waiting to get to 271. Because once you get to 271, you're at the point of no return. Once you leave 271, you have to finish the race no matter what. There's no place to drop. There's no crew access. So you got to finish that last 12, 13 miles no matter what. No matter how long it takes you. I mean, unless you did something at first mile or two, then you can head back. But once you're gone, you're committed to the finish. So if it takes you 10 hours, hey, you got to make it there and struggle the whole time. So I got to 271. I knew that was the last crew aid station. So I did lay down for 5-ish minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, just because I knew this was what was coming up, and I wanted to make sure my body was recovered a little bit for that last 3 miles, even though that was still 9-10 miles down the road. I wanted to get my body in check and have a place to lay down right now in the sun while it was still hot, to reabsorb some of the acid. Not that my legs were tired at that point or sore. I just wanted to be on top of things earlier and just take a couple-minute break, just for the potential of things to come. So that's what I did. Did I drink another? I think I drank, no, I didn't have any more protein drinks by then. I drank a normal Fit Aid there, to get my body a little bit recovered and some nutrients and minerals in there, like the niacin, to clean my system out. That's probably why I was pissing so much as well. That niacin probably just went through me that the Fit Aid had. And then I remember telling my dad to order me a bacon and banana pepper pizza from Fox's so I could have it at the finish line. And I also told him that make sure he drops my vehicle off there and get like another vehicle there, so I could actually stay, and he didn't have to worry about sticking around after I finished at that aid station. I grabbed a couple more orange slices there. I did get them to put a couple pieces of potato, like there's like, Walmart potato slices in a can. They had those, but they were dry. It's like they got them to put some salt on it. The dude put so much salt on it. The first little piece that I bit into, dude, it burnt my tongue like right away. Like it just felt like there was a piece of like I just drank like acid or put acid on my tongue. It just like burnt the tip of my tongue. So I had to scratch a bunch of the salt off just because the moisture from those potatoes just absorbed all the salt, and I just couldn't take it. Even though I needed the salt, I'm thankful for it, but it was just way too much, and it was burning my tongue. Maybe my tongue was a little bit dry at that point as well. I did grab another honey stinger wafer there to have with me in between. I didn't even grab my food bag off my dad because I just wasn't feeling that. I still really wasn't hungry at that point. Um, so between there and 62, which is the last aid station, it's an unmanned. Well, it's a manned aid station, but it's uncrewable, and it's remote. Um, you went through the grassy section and the fern section, which usually just strips your body of all moisture because the ferns and grass just pull the moisture out of your body. This year it wasn't bad, especially with that little bit of breeze. So I'm very thankful for that. I just kept motoring around. There was a couple people, like the same thing happened there. I'd pass some people and get passed up. There was a group of like 5 to 7 of us, just going back and forth a little bit. Because I would take a drink a little bit, piss. People get ahead of me, and I'd catch them back up. Got to mile 62 aid station, which is number 8, which is the last one. I was actually looking forward to it for about a mile or two because I remember they had potato soup there and grilled cheese in past years. And I was like, man, if they have it this year, dude, that would be like a godsend. Just to get some calories in me. And I was like, it was pretty good, So I got there. They did have it. So they gave it to you in a little cup, like a Dixie cup. So I got potato soup, got a couple pieces of grilled cheese, dipped grilled cheese in the potato soup, drank maybe like 6 ounces of Coke, and then some ginger ale. Some dude must have left. A dude that left before me left like a 8-ounce cup of ginger ale right beside me. So instead of asking them for more, I just drank that. But I was still feeling pretty good. I felt, like I said, I felt good all race. But that food right there at that point in the race just really hit the spot. And it was just like such a mental boost. It was just amazing. And I actually got there before dark. I didn't need a headlamp, which is shocking because I don't think I've ever gotten there before dark before. Or maybe I got there right at dark. And the temperatures there this year was great. It was still warm out. I've been there in the dark where it's been cold, or maybe because I was just so tired and worn down at that point. My body was just so cold. But I think the one year you could see your breath or something, and they had jackets, but temps were still good. So that was a good sign. So I didn't need to break out my emergency poncho. One of those rain jacket type things for like $1 at Walmart. I had that just in case I got cold. But I did ask them to reach in and get my waist lamp out and my headlamp so I didn't have to take my vest off and piss around with it. So I did gear up, got my headlamp on and waist lamp, because we only had 15-20 minutes before dark when I left, and maybe a couple minutes in after that aid station, I actually turned the headlamp on because it was getting a little shady in the woods, and I didn't want to trip or get hurt. So I used that, and then maybe like within 5 minutes, I just turned my waist lamp on. I said, if you have one on, you might as well use both. And I use both when possible, especially like later races where I know they're going to get technical. Is the waist lamp hits objects in the ground and takes away the shadows a lot differently than a headlamp does. So I like to use both. So like the headlamp, since like I'm not moving my waist, like my waist doesn't like twist and turn it does if you ever see me run, but it still stays more focused. Whereas like a headlamp, I can turn my head a little bit, look around me, or see what's coming up. Whereas the waist lamp basically stays more forward. So it makes it more like a daylight type scenario than just like a regular headlamp. But I love to use both. There's no point not using both because they affect the shadows differently. So when you use both, it is like daytime, especially if you have good headlamp and waist lamp. So I did that from the rest of the race in, because again, it was getting dark and there's no point in trying to trip and be a hero. I messaged my buddy John. He was done pacing somebody. So he was going to start walking back in from mile 70. He already, when I messaged him, he said he was already like a little under 3 miles in, and I was already past 62. I met him about 65 and a half, 66 range, pretty close to 66. I tried to push it a little bit for the next couple miles so he didn't have to go as far. And then when I met up with him, we ran together the rest of the race. I know I got past 55. The reason why I know I was past 55 before meeting him up, because that's the shelter turn. The last shelters on the trail on the right hand side. I was definitely up over the hill and on like the next flat section before we met up. But those last 6-8 miles, that's where I'm most familiar with on the trail. So I know what to expect, what's going to happen. And I was even on it Tuesday before the race. Those last 2.5 miles. I forget how many I did that day, but so yeah, like I said, as I train on the course all the time, me and him just bullshitted the way in, and we did stop at the View, which is 3 miles out, and see Johnstown all lit up in the dark, because we really don't get to see that too often. It's just such a nice view to see. And then we just kept running in. We weren't blistering the trail because, like I said, we were running smart, or I was running smart and not trying to get hurt. And I was just going to finish the race. I had plenty of time. Obviously, that if I finished in 16:50, I still had 5 hours to finish the race. So there was no point in me being a hero. We did catch somebody by the power line. And I was like, hey, this is where the rattlesnakes are. And John's like, oh, they're not, don't worry, they're not here at dark. So that was just a little side stitch there. Kept running in. We hit the Laurels. I took my time and walked through the Mountain Laurel tunnels, because there is a couple drop-offs there, 18 2 feet drop-offs. So if you're running through there, especially at dark, and you don't know any better, you could twist an ankle pretty good. Just, all of a sudden you're running, and you go boom, like right down. And I tell people that last 3 miles, there's a lot of false steps, meaning you think you're running on something solid, but your foot sinks down just a tad, because there's a lot of leaf cover in that section. So you end up tripping and then going face forward. So being smart about that. They did have some lights in the one tunnel that lit up. So that was pretty neat. Somewhere around, I think, 2.5 though. Before it would have been before we reached the power line. I looked at whatever it was. I remember looking at John or saying something to John. I was like, hey, I got a half an hour, or I think it was a half an hour, 35 minutes. I was like, if I finish in half an hour, 35 minutes, that would actually be a new PR for me for this race. And he was just like, no way. I was like, I'm not worried about it right now. We're just going to keep going at our pace and see, if it happens, it happens, which is true. I wasn't worried about it, because I didn't want to start running hard and trip and fall and get hurt. There was no point, again, being a hero. So we just kept going. And I was like, man, for some reason, the second to the last technical, like, downhill part, before we hit the bottom where the billboards are, like a mile out, I was confused. I was like, aren't we at the bottom yet? And he's like, no, you got one more. So then when we got down to the billboards, which is actually mile marker 69 on the trail, I called my dad and told him I'd be there in like 3 to 5 minutes to be ready. And then I'm looking at my watch, because the last 69 to 70 is actually only 0.6 miles. If people don't know that, it is a little bit short. So that's why you really only get 68 and a half if you do the whole trail, as long as you don't deviate too much at an aid station or, you know, off the trail to go to the bathroom. So anyway, we get down to the 69. I call my dad. I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, all right, I was like, John, I got like 5 minutes to make it this last 0.6 for a PR, because I was giving myself a minute buffer. He's like, all right, go. He's like, don't worry about me, just go. So I went and I started sprinting. We'll probably say that last half mile I started sprinting. I remember I was looking at my watch. It was between a 6 minute pace and like I think 9. I don't think I was above 9 at all. I don't know why I was looking at my watch. Good way to trip and fall, but so I started like sprinting in to get to that PR, just as a little added goal for the day to add on to the goals, since I didn't reach some of the other ones. So yeah, I was worried the whole time that I was sprinting in. I was like, well, you're going to trip. I was like, when are you going to trip? When are you going to trip? Because I knew it was coming. Thankfully, it didn't happen, but I was expecting to just like fall and trip. I just had enough light and knowing the trail enough where I didn't. I was picking up my feet a little bit higher than I normally would. That probably helped as well. So somehow I came in and finished with a 1.5-minute PR, which is awesome. Wasn't expecting that, but again, if I would have did that 12.5 to 14, 15 range time that I wanted to, it would have been a PR anyhow. So I guess if you look at it, I did get that goal of a PR, even though I didn't really call that pace earlier a PR, but it still isn't. So yeah, whatever. I'll take it. So I finished 5 times now. Ran the race 5 times. This is my best time of all 5 times. Still left a lot of time out there. Definitely easily could have knocked off 2-3 hours easily. You know, just getting in the aid stations a lot quicker, not taking my breaks, not pooping, and actually pushing the pace and actually racing. Definitely could have knocked 2 to 3 hours off easily. So I am a little disappointed in that, looking at things, but can't really be upset for finishing the race again. Very thankful that I was able to finish the race and dedicate it to my mom. So that should be priority over everything else. So everything else was secondary. Yeah. So after finishing, I stayed at the finish line for a couple minutes, took a couple quick pictures, went to the vehicle and changed. Because I just had to get out of my Under Armour ISO chill compression shorts, because being in them for 17 hours, well, 18 plus, because the drive down, it was just time that they were just basically stuck on me, and I just needed fresh clothes. So I did that real quick, and then I hung out, came back down, hung out till 2 in the morning, and watched all my friends finish, which was awesome. So many happy faces. There was jubilation. There was some aggravation. Not really. Well, I guess there was some sadness, you know, because people were so overjoyed that they finished the race and, you know, so happy with their accomplishment. There was a couple of tears and stuff like that. But I would say the vast majority of people were just so happy and proud of themselves to finish the race. So that was very awesome to see. And I got to see so many people finish the race and get to talk to so many people and hear their stories and what they thought. It was just a good night overall, and I'm glad I stayed till 2 to see, you know, my buddies and stuff finish. So I got to see about 100 people finish the race / some relayers. So yeah, it was a good time. But yeah, this is like one of the first years I was able to actually stay at the finish line for a long period of time. I know the one year I went home, showered, and came back. Last year I stayed for like 20 minutes. I was just too tired. Another year I was just, you know, in that 18-hour range where by the time I finished and stuff, you know, everybody else was most people were gone. So this year I was thankful that I was able to get in early enough where I could watch more people. Plus, again, my body was fine when I was finished. My legs weren't tired. Their ligaments were a little bit, I don't want to say sore, but you could just feel they're maybe tingly or something. Not really, I don't know, tingly or sore, but you could just feel they were worked a little bit. I guess would be a good way to put it. But they weren't sore. I wasn't sore the next day. Just a little bit tired when I finally, I didn't leave there till 2. Probably didn't get to bed till close to 4 Saturday. So I was up pretty much 24 hours on 3.5 hours of sleep. So when I crashed hard. But yeah, it was nice to be able to stay there, relax, and not be sore and tired. But other than that, again, as I said, I'm thankful that I finished. Thankful for McCunty giving me the motivation to finish, even though the McCunty wanted to make a scene at the finish line as well. Her and her little hand pet boyfriend, because I don't think they're married yet, but he had to make a little bit of a scene. Wouldn't go to up in the parking lot and settle it. Must be afraid. Anyway, so that was that, and that's why that happened afterwards. If people saw that at the finish line, it stems from earlier in the race and other things locally, but just shows their true colors in front of everybody. What I've been saying. So yeah, I finished like 33rd overall out of like 180 people who started the race. 16 hours, 50 minutes, 21 seconds, which is a little over a minute and a half PR for me. And even though it wasn't my best race that I should be able to physically do, it was still my best race that I've actually done on the trail, like put together. Other years I've been sore and tired, and this year I was fine, so can't really complain about that. And that's a long race recap, but that's everything that needs to be said, and I think is most in-depth that I can get into without going into 3 hours. So if you enjoy it, good. If not, tough shit, I guess.